Hi there, it's Miracle. I'm here today with my July wrap-up. July was like the month of memoir for me. I read 4 of them and also 2 other fiction books. The first book I finished was In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. That's my cat. I did a book review of it just last week, so I'll link it down below in the description box. And this is a book about how Yeonmi and her family escaped from North Korea to live in South Korea. But not just it, I like how it includes a lot of living details about the life, how it works in North Korea, and also what made her and her family wanted to escape, and also the differences between classes and cities in North Korea. But what touched me the most is how strong Yeonmi was as a young woman. She went through the most difficult things that we cannot even imagine, but she still have a lot of interest to study, and also she didn't lose her hope for living. She worked so hard to protect her mom and her sister. I feel it's weird to say this book is inspiring because it's full of darkness and difficulties, but I ended up fully respected and admired Yeonmi as a young woman. The second book I finished was What Happened by Hillary Clinton, and I wanted to read this book since it came out because in 2016 the United States presidential election was my first time observation of the election systems in Western countries, and it was like a bizarre experience for me. All of my classmates and professors are talking it on and off class, and all the medias, like the traditional ones and also the social media, was crazy about all kind of possibilities. So I was very curious to see what a presidential candidate would say about those experiences. And my cats are fighting. If you hear anything, I'm sorry for that. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what a presidential candidate want to say about that whole event, especially things turn to the opposite side of her hope. And as a memoir, I feel like this book was actually surprisingly interesting with little jokes here and there. And at some point, I actually thought Hillary Clinton will make a very good booktuber because she seems read so much and quoted a lot of things from a variety of genres. However, she tried to cover so much topics in this book, and sometimes it can feel redundant. For example, when she tried to explaining her emails again and again. But besides that, I feel it's a very informative books from her account, of course, and I learned something, especially when she talks about the issues that she thinks America has. The third book I read, I actually DNF'd. It was Fierce Kingdom by Jean Phillips, and it is a thriller that was very popular last year, and I didn't get it. It's talking about a mother took her son to the zoo, but they end up hiding somewhere on their way out because they saw a gunman. And I think the writing was okay, but the pacing was very weird. Especially you got a big, huge chunk of the mother's narrative in the beginning of the book, and suddenly the narration turned to other person and left me totally clueless. And also the mother was very irrational and making strange decisions throughout the whole book. And what made me DNF the book was she started to compare the gunman to Arabian people when there's totally zero relation between them. And I feel like the comparison is unnecessary. Maybe the author want to do good, but it's just such a bad stereotypical writing. So I really don't like it and didn't finish it. The next book I read I quite enjoy. It was Room by Emma Dunhill, and it is talking from a 5-year-old boy's perspective. And he was born in this room because his mother was kidnapped and locked in this room by a guy. So I got to see things throughout his eyes, and because he never left the room, so his knowledge about the world was very limited, and that's what makes this book so special. I feel like the writing in this book was very peculiar because everything was told from this 5-year-old boy, and he feels like very at his age with the curiosity of everything, but doesn't necessarily understand a lot of things. And also I enjoyed his interaction with his mom, and without giving out any spoiler, I feel like something happened in the second half of the book was very realistic. Overall, I don't want to talk a lot about this book because I don't want to give it away, but I feel like I really enjoyed the reading experience, and also I heard the movie was really good, so I'm about to check it out. Following, I finished I Am, The 17 Brushes with Death by Maggie Ophel. This is Maggie Ophel's memoir talking about the 17 times of near-death experiences of hers, and each of the chapter was titled after a part of body, like lung, neck, and other body parts. Those are the parts that she felt like troubled or she was hurt in that particular chapters. This was very hyped on BookTube earlier this year, and I could totally see that. For example, I enjoyed the first two chapters, last two chapters, and two chapters in the middle very much, including she talks about her childhood, her miscarriage, and the birth of her children. However, I feel like the other chapters was kind of plain and did not connect with me as much as the chapters that I mentioned, and I have a feeling that this was not a very good first book of Maggie Ilfeld because I heard she's writing was phenomenal in her other books. And the last book I finished was Once Upon a Time in the East by Guo Xiaolu, and this is the other book that I include in my dual review of A Long Ways in Order to Live because I think they shared the same theme, which is life is very, very difficult for them. Different from Yaomi, Xiaolu's difficulties was not that life-threatening, but she's also suffered from poverty, and after she became a teenager, she wanted freedom for her spirit and her art, which brought her to Beijing and eventually London. This was a great memoir that shows you how life was growing up in the 70s in China, and a lot of historical events formed her personality as well as her family's. Her writing was calm but powerful. However, I feel like she makes her own experience sounds like the only experience that you can get growing up at that time, and is a little bit of overgeneralized. In my opinion, but I still think it's a book that's worth reading. And that's all for this wrap up, and let me know what book you enjoy the most in the month of July, and I know it's a bit late, but happy reading in August, and see you next time. Bye!